Hey guys, Mick here. Thanks for checking out our video. This one we're going to do a long overdue review on my e-bike. Been planning on shooting a review on this for a while and hadn't got around to it, so thought we'd use the opportunity to do it. So the bike we're doing a review on is Rocky Mountain Growler. So this is actually the entry-level Rocky Mountain e-bike, and I've got to say I've been really impressed with it. Disclaimer up front, we do have an arrangement with Rocky, but on the other hand, this is my personal bike and I certainly don't get them for free, so I do have to still buy them. So when I went looking for an e-bike, it was towards the part of the COVID pandemic where there wasn't a lot available, and I did have a need for an e-bike, and so I didn't think I would use it as much as what I actually have. So I thought I'd go for something a little bit more entry level, save a bit of money. It would work for doing some tours, bit of e-bike teaching, some cruising around when we're looking after kids groups and things like that. And I didn't have a massive expectation on the capability of the bike. I figured that I'd still use my Slayer for 90% of my riding, and certainly all the downhill and jumping and most of the technical stuff. So the Growler was available, and I thought I'd give it a go and it would fill my needs pretty well. I have to say, since I've had the Growler, I've been hugely impressed. The bike is a hell of a lot more capable than what I thought it would be, although it does still have some significant limitations. I really like the Rocky Mountain motor. The design concept they went with was to have it mounted in front of the cranks. The idea of that is they could actually set their frame geometry without it having to be affected by the actual motor, which is a great concept. The other thing I like about it is I really like the feel of it. The way it drives is really smooth and really progressive and quite sensitive to input from your pedal strokes. The other thing is it's 108 Newton meters, so that's significantly more torque than any other motor on the market, which you really do feel when you're grinding up steep hills. So that's a great option. The other thing with the Growler is it's got a 670 watt-hour battery, so it's quite a big battery for an entry-level bike. So it does give me good range. I've done a couple of 60-kilometre rides on it. Admittedly, I was running it in fairly low power settings most of that time, but it's actually got a really good range. Now the bike itself, from a handling perspective, one of the advantages of the Rocky over some of the other more entry-level bikes is the geometry is awesome. It's got really good handling, really good feel, and feels like a trail bike. It's also 27 plus tyres, and I'm a big fan of plus tyres on an e-bike. The extra traction with the extra weight is great, and yeah, really like running the fatter tyres. I think that sort of really works well on e-bikes. The negative sides of it is an entry-level bike. So it comes with some Sun Tour forks, which are not particularly effective, low-end brakes, and Dior group set. So it is lower-end components, lower-end wheels, lower-end hubs. Now for the intended use of the bike, which I would aim this bike at fire roads, single track, green single track into blue single track, a little bit of techie stuff, not really aimed at hitting big jumps, hitting big drops, super high speed. That's not really what this level of bike in any of the brands is really designed for. And that was my intended use when I got it. Of course, me being me, as soon as I got it, I decided to see what it would do. And I've been really impressed at the level of stuff that it will do, from bigger jumps, certainly bigger drops. Been riding double black rock gardens on it, and the bike has stood up really well. Now the limitations that showed through was, the first thing was the front forks. So the Sun Tour forks lasted me about 4 weeks before I destroyed them, and this is now I've gone from 130mm Sun Tour to 160mm Fox 36. That completely changed the bike. Firstly, you've got suspension that actually works. The 160mm of travel is really good, slackens the head angle just slightly, and it's made a massive difference to the bike. and a huge difference to the capabilities, making it possible to ride it on much worse terrain that it really wasn't intended for. The next limitation is probably the brakes. They really aren't very strong, and once again, for its intended use, they're really great brakes, but I find riding steep chutes or steep double black or high speed, it is a bit of a handful to make it stop. I've got fairly strong hands, I can get away with it, but the more basic brakes aren't ideal. And if I was keeping this as my long-term personal bike, I'd probably upgrade the brakes. But given as how I am getting a dually in the not too distant future, I'm happy with it as it is. The rest of the components, group set wise, Dior shifters are fine. I've had no problems with them since I've had it. And e-bikes tend to be a bit hard on drivetrains, so I think having a cheaper drivetrain where chains and cassettes and so forth are cheaper and easier to replace is probably an advantage. You don't really need to save weight on a bike like this to put something like XTR on it or XT, and the shifting is perfectly adequate. So I haven't had any problems with that, and I'm quite happy with that drivetrain. I have broken a chain on it and replaced a chain, and once again, it's a cheaper drivetrain, so it's quite easy to do. The other changes I've done, which is just a personal thing, is I'm running Michelin E-Wilds in 2.8. So I do prefer the Michelin tyres over the Maxxis that came with it, but there was nothing actually wrong with the Maxxis. I'm just finding that the grip on these is better, and so I do personally prefer that setup. So at the moment, for my cross-country cruising and just going out cruising around on the bike, this has kind of become my default bike. I really like the way it handles. It's great on blue-green single track, it's great on fire road, it's good for just going out and cruising around, having relaxing rides. If I want to push it, then I can go out and ride it really hard, like I would an XC bike. I still get an amazing workout, I just travel faster than I could on a normal analog bike. So for that sort of stuff, it's been awesome, can't fault it at all. Harder terrain, I've been really impressed at some of the jumps I can do on it, the drops, the ability to ride it through harder double black terrain, steep rock gardens. It's been really good. With upgrading the forks, it's enabled me to ride it on much harder terrain. I was interested to see what the next point to brake would be, and that's proved to be the rear hub. So I have exploded the internals of a rear hub. Once again, it's being a cheaper wheel. If I was going to keep this as my long-term bike and really thrash it, I'd probably put a better set of wheels on it. Being an e-bike, it's heavier in the back end, so when you're landing drops and jumps, it's harder to put it down gently. The weight of the bike, it does tend to fall down a little bit, and so I do find it does crash onto things a little. If it was a dually, that would be sort of absorbed, but generally rear wheel lifting and being really smooth on the back end of an e-bike is a little bit harder. And I find with the hardtail, it does take a bit of a pounding in the rear hub. But once again, it was a fairly cheap rear hub, and it wasn't that expensive to rebuild it. So as an entry-level e-bike, it's incredibly capable. It's done everything I've thrown at it. For riders getting into e-bikes, it's a great option if you don't want to spend the money and go to a higher end dual suspension. And it's still really capable. And it's not just a fire trail bike. There's a lot of things that you can do with it, and I've been really happy with it. So yeah, awesome bike, awesome build quality, everything rides really well. Thanks heaps for watching, guys. Hope the review was useful, and we'll see you out on the trails soon, hopefully.